Welcome to the African News Review podcast, where we cut through the noise and get to the truth. I am your host, Adesoji Iginla, and each week we are here to challenge the biases, prejudices, and misinformation in the Western press about Africa. Using historical context and contemporary insights, we set the record straight and reclaim the narrative. Tune in every Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern as we uncover the real stories and reshape the conversations about Africa. This is the African News Review podcast, reclaiming Africa's narrative, one story at a time. Yes, greetings, and again, welcome to African News Review. I am your host, Adesoji Iginla, and with me is my sister. I mean, we've been doing lots of things together now. So she's Fubara, Eneli Esquire. Welcome, sister.
Thank you. Greetings to you and greetings to everyone watching in real time and later.
Yes, greetings. And yes, do all the good stuff, like, share, subscribe. Yeah. First things first, the good comrade is called away on another duty, so he is unable to join us today, but he will be with us next week. But the show must go on, as they say. And so, for our first story today, first things first, actually, the story where you are. I was about to get ahead of myself there. So what's the major news story where you at that the world should know about?
The roof is on fire. Martin Luther King talked about us. Dr. Martin Luther King talked about, I think I may have integrated my people into a burning house. The house is burning. Many of us still have boots on the ground and our fans, and it doesn't appear that as many of us as I would like to see anyway are
plugged in
and fighting back. However, even as I say that, I will say this, that the mere act of living, in spite of everything that's being done to make our lives miserable and untenable, is an act of resistance. So I do want to acknowledge that. But I also know that 1964 Voting Rights Act is under attack, our civil rights are under attack, and we must have those courageous voices that are out and open, speaking, galvanizing. We have a lot of work to do. And so in my area, driving yesterday from one political event to a mentoring program event that we had, I see this billboard, and apparently I don't live in this particular city I'm going to talk about, but many cities around me have done this. They're having a vigil for Charlie Kirk, tonight, probably a 5-minute drive away from my house.
Interesting.
And I'm wondering if that is taxpayers' money that they are using for this vigil. But yes, an avowed, in my opinion, and his words back this up, racist, who felt like African Americans were better off in the 1940s before the Civil Rights Act was passed, is being
celebrated,
touted as this savior, celebrated, and 100% of the U.S. Senate voted to declare his birthday a national day of remembrance. But the ancestors, yes, October 14th, but the ancestors are so amazing. Because guess who else was born on October 14th?
Let me guess. George Floyd?
Yes! So I know for me now, my wheels are turning, and it's like, okay, who are the organizations I can call upon so that we have a George Floyd's Remembrance Day? And it's not reactionary. It is actually what we should have done anyway. But now they have given us that impetus, and so we should rise to the challenge.
And there's no excuse since you have the day off.
Well, I don't know if they're giving us the whole day off. Time will tell. I know they've been upset for a very long time that, the last two, if I'm not mistaken, the last two national holidays have been related to quote unquote Black people. That's how they look at it, because our history is not their history. And that would be Martin Luther King Day and then Juneteenth. So I guess they felt they were way overdue. And the best they could come up with is Charlie Kirk. So yeah.
Okay. And well, that's actually a good news if you look at it in a roundabout way. For a while, his name has been vilified. I'm talking about George Floyd. And so if you have a day that can be used to look at the reason why he would be allowed to be unalived in public on camera, and people then question the reason for his demise, then that is some sort of, come on, pets. And let's see how they will cancel that day and say, well, you can't name it any other day. It's a free day. So that's it. Over here, we had the dubious honor of having your felon-in-chief, 34-time
You
convicted
guys have
felon.
enough air freshener to freshen up the air after he left?
34-time convicted felon who was then a guest of His Majesty, King Charles III. And he happened
Who he called his friend Charles.
Well, I don't know about friend.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he got rid of the honorific and everything. It was just my friend Charles. I was like, okay.
Yeah, my boo. So, yeah, we had the dubious honor of hosting him for 2.5 days. But his first night was rather very eventful. He was supposed to be sequestered at Windsor Castle, which is just outside London. And yes, he lived there, but the locals did make him feel very comfortable. They shot him a documentary which they projected onto the wall of his residence. And it was a documentary that was talking about his role, or how can I say it? His dally with one of the most vile, convicted pedophile in the world, Jeffrey Epstein. So no doubt he will have had a very peaceful night's sleep. I'm not sure if they share beds anyway, but
No. They did announce that they had separate rooms.
Okay.
And he brought his own sheets, possibly out of maybe respect for not staining.
Oh, okay.
Staining you guys sheets with whatever dye he uses on his hair and his body. And maybe, if there are other bodily functions, I don't know. Let me not speculate, because, yeah.
So we did mention earlier that Charlie Kirk seems to be in the news. And so our first news story actually underscores that point. And for that, we go to The Guardian. And it's titled Washington Post. Washington Post columnist said she was fired over post after Charlie Kirk's killing. Karen Attiah said she was dropped by a newspaper after 11 years for addressing political violence, race, and gun control. There she is. And it goes into details. It says Washington Post columnist Karen Attiah said she's been fired for a newspaper over a social media post about gun control and race in the aftermath of far-right commentator Charlie Kirk's killing. 39-year-old Attiah recounted on a Substack post that she had been dropped as a Post columnist after 11 years for speaking out against political violence and double standards and America's apathy towards guns. I mean, first things first. What do you make of this story?
Well,
I'm going to stop sharing. But if you want me to bring it back up, I will.
No, that's fine. So
I believe you've had time to look at it.
Yes.
There were certain things that jump out at me there, but I was wondering what was your first impressions with regards to the story. Can you hear me?
Okay, it appears that you cannot hear me. Okay, so if you guys can still hear me, I thought it was on my end, but it appears it's on Adesoji's end of things. And so I will try to hold down the fort until he gets back in. Talking about, let me speak to something someone posted earlier. Okay, here he is. He's coming back in.
Yes. Sorry about that.
Right.
Yeah. Good.
So, yeah. So in terms of our dear sister Karen Attiah, first of all, I'm sure that she was not surprised by this at all. As she noted, and as was noted in the article, she is the last Black full-time
columnist
contributor, columnist for the Post. We also know that this was purchased by Jeff Bezos of Amazon. And although Amazon has really pulled all of us in and made it very convenient to shop from them, we should start looking for some alternatives. If you spent $100 a month, maybe you can take it down to $20 a month until you wean yourself completely off. Because obviously they're using the gains from our shopping with them to oppress us. So first and foremost, when they bought the Post, one of the things they immediately did was they started to get rid of all of the columnists who in any way wrote anything that they felt was not complimentary of Donald Trump. We might remember that they decided for the first time in many decades, they decided not to endorse any candidate in the presidential election because they couldn't really full-throatedly come out at that point to endorse Trump, but they did not want to be seen as endorsing his opponent either. We also know that in terms of the sister's activism, that she was teaching a course through Columbia University, and they determined that it was too inflammatory, and so they cut that off, and she ended up providing that course for free. So they've had her in their crosshairs for a while. I think it's also noteworthy that she is of Ghanaian and Nigerian descent. So she was born here in the United States, but her ancestors are Nigerian and Ghanaian. And that certainly probably is possibly not anything that is working in her favor, at least from the viewpoint of white nationalists. And so very important that we keep finding other ways to get our messages out. You know, when I went to school many decades ago, the idea was for Black people in particular, I think many of us got this message. And if you did and you live here in the United States, or even in other African countries or countries run by that are predominantly Black, please put this in the chat. This would be interesting to see. One of the messages we got was get a good education so you could get a good government job. Because the idea were that these government jobs were quote unquote safer and you could climb up the ladder, so to speak, and your benefits were assured and so on and so forth. And many Black people followed that route. And we can see under the Trump administration, this mass firing of Black people, and a good number of them Black women. I think the last figures I saw was something like 300,000 Black women have lost their jobs, and we're talking decent paying jobs here. And so the purge is on in every way. And so more than ever, this kind of article buttresses the importance of not just thinking that we are going to go into these spaces that white people have created for them and that somehow we are going to change things from the inside when the structure remains the same and the power base remains the same, right? And, you know, my claim to fame is I'm the first Black person in the here or the first Black person there. No, if we're not building our own, we don't own anything. And a long time ago, one of my mentors said this to me, and it was very sobering. And that is that you do not own anything you cannot protect. And it was so sobering for me because I was thinking about the African continent itself. And of course, we're going to get into more stories. If we are not in control, if we cannot protect what we say we own, do we really own it? Right? And so Karen Attiah, I know that she is going to continue to do great things with or without the Post. I do hope she sues them. And my understanding of the law, but then again, it's up to interpretation by the judges. But my understanding of the law and how it has been previously interpreted is that she has a good case here. Now, of course, they went on to look at her social media postings and to try to dissect that. And it's amazing, again, how she can lose her job for repeating the words of a human being who is now being honored. So if his words weren't worth repeating, why is he being honored, but I'm getting fired for repeating said words? But this is the country that we live in, and it's a clarion call. People, to the extent that you can, build your own, or like most of us, have your quote unquote side hustle and work to make that side hustle maybe your main hustle.
Yes, thank you. Sorry about the technical issues. They've been sorting out the internet around here for a while, and it's been good all morning, but hey, it is what it is. We will not be deterred. There was one other thing I wanted to mention with regards to Karen Attiah. When she joined the Washington Post, she was brought in as a way of providing a window into the outside world so that she could give the American viewers opinions from across the world. And so she got this column titled Global Opinions, and she got everyone on board to, bring in stories from all over the world. One particular person she invited in was Jamal Khashoggi.
Yes.
I'm sure people do remember.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes.
So the fact that Jamal Khashoggi, when joining the Washington Post, and here is where a twist of fate comes in. He joined the Washington Post in 2016 because he was not allowed to write in Saudi Arabia. Coming over to the United States, getting political asylum, becoming an American resident, and what have you, he then, sharpened his pen and started writing again. And here's where things started getting interesting. The reason he was banned in Saudi Arabia for writing was because he criticized, guess who? Not MBS, but Donald Trump. And it's funny that Attiah will be losing her job because in their mind, she is undermining the memory of a surrogate of Donald Trump. So look at how history spins in a circle. And
by the way, she had continued to do work to keep Khashoggi's name alive.
Name alive, yes. So that said, hopefully she gets her, due flowers, and she will continue. Another thing that she actually mentioned, she was the one who brought the Chibok girls case to world attention that got Michelle Obama involved and what have you. So she's been doing some good work out there. And here is the thing. This guy made his name, that is Charlie Kirk, vilifying black women. And it's funny that black women have to be sacrificed in order to appease his memory. Mm-hmm. That is American history for you in a nutshell. So,
yeah.
You wanted to add something else before we move on?
No, we can move on.
Okay. So for our next story, we go to Kenya, and it won't be the last time, but first things first. Kenya has finally decided, or at least villagers have won a right against a mining firm in Kenya, and it's titled How Kenya Villagers Sought New Land Rights Against a Mining Company. And the story reads, beneath the black rocks of eastern Kenya, the land splits open into a secret underworld, a labyrinth of ancient caves formed over millions of years. In their roof chambers where violet flowers bloom in the dark and the bones of ancestors were found, the Choyin people whisper prayers, make offerings, and the ribbons to stone walls to summon spirits. The stop and short of this is this community has won a right to stop a foreign mining firm from undermining the integrity of their community. And so, as someone who cares very much about the environment yourself, what was your initial take when you read the story?
Again, profound sadness. Reading this article made me think of the writings of Credo Mutua. He talks about, I believe it's in Ndaba, My Children, he talks about the raping of Mother Africa. No, that's a graphic visual, but those are really the words he used. We allow others to come in and just dig her up taking her minerals and leaving large gaping holes. And part of the conversation that imperialists, that what do they call themselves? Capitalists don't want to have is the environmental impact
assessments
of these projects that are supposed to bring about prosperity. And the question is, how do we define prosperity? Because if you've poisoned the land, if you've poisoned the water, if you've killed off the trees, if you've killed off the animals, how long can you possibly, quote unquote, prosper? Can you eat cement? So they were buying up this land, and because underneath it are all of these limestone deposits that they could then use to make cement to sell. And the idea behind it, which came from one of our educated elites, a Kenyan who lives outside of the country.
Thank you.
Is this is a depressed area and it would bring about prosperity. But what is the price for what is this prosperity? If the people can't eat, if they can't breathe because the trees, they give them oxygen, if their land has been completely desecrated, and then let's talk about the spiritual aspect of it. You are not going to now go and bulldoze the Vatican for economic prosperity.
Even if you find gold.
You're not going to go to the St. Peter's Basilica and say, we're tearing this down because we found diamonds underneath. Like, their spiritual sites are sacred, but ours don't mean anything. Because custodians are usually everyday people who may be economically impoverished, people who may not be literate in the language you're speaking and certainly do not understand the documents that you brought, who are not guided by any attorneys who have also themselves not sold out. So just like the treaties that our forefathers and foremothers signed centuries ago, and you don't even know the verbiage of the treaty, they're interpreting it to you and telling you this is what the document says, just put an X. We're seeing in this article, first of all, that this area is an area with a labyrinth, as you read, of caves and spiritual sites that could be developed in a different way if you wanted to, quote unquote, bring in some prosperity. We've seen that in Egypt, all of these sites that people are going to now, where areas that commoners couldn't even traverse back in the day. They were for the priests and for certain, high-ranking people. I still don't agree with it, but I understand it. But they're now using it to attract tourism and all of that. But maintaining those sites, preserving those sites, preserving that heritage. And so in the case of these guys, you're just going to come and buy up the land and just dig through it, extract your limestone, whatever cement. Listen, this is not about the prosperity of the people. It's about the Emirati-backed group and this Kenyan investor, son of the soil, who is so disconnected from his soil and his people that money trumps, and I use that word Trump, pun intended, everything else. So I am glad that there were a few people who found the wherewithal to fight back. And that they have now asked for, though we still have to go to a foreigners to get the designation, to get this UNESCO designation to hopefully preserve the area, that at least the Minister of the Interior, even not very vocally, still opposed this, because otherwise the Kenyan officials, by and large, were going to go along with this. But then now you look at the harm that has already been done. For those who sold their land, they can't get it back.
Can't get it back, yeah.
And for so many of them, they're now saying that they sold their land for such a pittance that it has not even allowed them to relocate or to be able to finish an edifice in which they can live. So
yes.
Now you don't have your land and whatever it was worth and just being able to pass it on. And now you also don't have anywhere to live. And how many of these stories are taking place that don't even make it to light? I'm sorry, please go ahead.
Just taking a quick break here on the African News Review podcast, but don't go anywhere. If you're enjoying our deep dive into the real stories behind the headlines, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Every Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern, we're here to debunk the myths and bring you the truth about Africa. Want to help spread the word? Share this podcast with your friends and leave us a review. It goes a long way in helping others discover the real Africa. Without further ado, let's get back to setting the record straight.
When I read that story, I remember my Form 2. We were asked to read a book titled Things Fall Apart. And there is a part there where Okonkwo talked about the land. So if you indulge me, I'm going to quickly read it. He says, "Does the white man understand our custom about land? How can he, when he doesn't even speak our tongue? But he says our customs are bad, and our own brothers, who have taken up his religion," in this case, that gentleman has taken up the religion of capitalism, also say our customs are bad. How do we think we can fight when our own brothers have turned against us? The white man is very clever. He came quietly and peaceably with his religion. We were amused at his foolishness and allowed him to stay. Now he has won our brothers, and our clan can no longer act like one. He has put a knife on the things that held us together, and we have fallen apart. And that is a novel, Things Fall Apart, that we read from secondary school, Form 2. So to think that a colonial tale still holds true in 2025, that man comes into a land of people that look like him, and the only value he can bring it to them is displace them and dig up the place because he wants to make money. The religion of the West.
And as you can see from the article, it talked about how it has split the people.
Yeah.
That family members are not speaking to each other anymore, siblings, clansmen, so on and so forth. Because some people could see it from a different lens, and some other people were like, but give me money to eat today. And let's not think about the future, even though you inherited this land to the extent that we inherit land, because in the past, the land belonged to all the people, that you inherited that land from people who preserved it for all of these centuries for you. And just like that. And of course, all of these ideas that they have about this factory versus that factory rarely ever address how they make things better for the people who live there. It's all about extraction and exploitation. Oh, you'll get jobs or something. But it's really about the long-term good of those people, as we will see from some of the other articles you're going to raise today.
I mean, you also notice that in that same article, there was the case of the official that was applying pressure to the local community.
Of course.
Trying to serve the interest, the foreign interest, as opposed to the detriment of people that look like you. I mean, colonialism has really done a number on Africans. And from the outside looking in, people were like, "Oh, but you guys are at home." What? This is the kind of stuff that we have to face with, which another brilliant gentleman in Aikweyama constantly reminds us that the beautiful ones are not yet born. We might think we have leaders. No, we don't. What we have are foreign interpreters whose job it's only to carry water for the foreign interest. And that's why you have leaders who, the moment they decide they're going to champion the cause of the people, they get exterminated. And the ones that go along with the game plan stay in power for even die there. It's the mind boggles. But that said,
someone in the chat brought up a historical, not real, maybe a biblical reference would be more the way to characterize it. For those of you who studied this part of the Bible or studied any part of the Bible, where there's a story about Jacob and Esau. And as the story goes, their father, Isaac, preferred Esau to Jacob, but
Okay.
their mother preferred Jacob to Esau. Esau comes in starving. Not really, because if he was starving, he'll be really weak. He was just really hungry. He comes in really hungry, and he basically sells his birthright. As the firstborn,
The prodigal son, the story of the prodigal son.
No, not prodigal son. He sells his birthright for a bowl of soup. And he basically is like, hey, I'm just so hungry. Just give me something to eat now, and I'll give you my birthright, which was his future inheritance. And so he ate that day, and presumably his hunger was quenched. But as a result, according to the Bible, lost his long-term inheritance. And that is what we see a lot of African elites doing, is whatever it is they're going to pay this Kenyan investor, and how many how many millions he makes and is able to create generational wealth for just his family. You don't care that in convincing people to take enough money those people probably ate really good for 2 weeks and then started building a home and then realized, I don't have enough money to finish this. So you ate for one day, but you've given your birthright away for temporary comfort, very temporary. Yeah. So Karen, thanks for bringing that up back to my Bible study days. Because,
Amen.
I am a product of this colonizing project.
Welcome to
Christians, don't come for me. Don't come for me. I ain't saying nothing bad about Christianity. Don't come for me.
Okay, yes. And speaking still in Kenya, we go to our next story, which comes from Al Jazeera and is titled UN Agency Mull the Idea of Moving to Kenya. And so this comes with all kinds of possibilities. And also, as we go into it, as UN Agency Mull Kenya moves, some fear exclusion from Nairobi's growth. The lead reads, Kenyans there between hope for prosperity and weariness as UN plans relocation of key offices from high-cost Western cities. We're talking New York and Geneva. So in the shadow of the Girigiri neighborhood, where manicured lawns meet the edge of Karura Forest, and United Nations staff in air-conditioned vehicles glide past security checkpoints, like a different reality just minutes away. So it goes into how cramped the city is, but I'd just like to read some highlighted passage. While the UN complex boasts state-of-the-art conference facilities and reliable power, Kirimi meat spoils daily in her small butchery. By 2026, major UN agencies, including UNICEF, Universal Food Program, UN Women may relocate their headquarters from high-cost Western cities to Nairobi, part of the UN 80 reform agenda to decentralize operations to more cost-effective regions, it says. Kenya will be leveraging on the UN existing presence in the country and the opportunities presented by its operation in the Greater Horn, East and Central Africa sub-regions. Prime Cabinet Secretary Muziela Madavani was quoted as saying in February, even though the UN said this month that the relocation decision has not been finalized. Your initial thoughts with regards to the proposed move, what do you think of it?
Brother, I understand why so many of us are just burying our heads in the sand and just like, I don't want to hear. I see no evil, I hear no evil, and maybe because of that, there'll be no evil. These stories hurt my spirit.
Tell us
I'm gonna
why.
go back to the initial Kenya story. When we think of our connection to our ancestors, our connection to how our ancestors celebrated and worshiped and interacted with God, when we think about how easily we just discard those things because Western ideology does not attach any importance to it. If anything, we'll demonize it. So then we demonize it as well. So you come to this story about this relocation, which, by the way, the UN had already relocated some of its agencies to Nairobi. So the idea that we're still thinking about it and all of that is not true. What's happening is that where the UN is based in some of these Western cities, the rent is really high. They're spending a lot of money on real estate.
But yeah.
And similarly to what everyday white people are doing, which is what we nicely call gentrification, which we really need to change our words, because when we use these words, it just kind of makes it seem like not a big
loose meaning.
deal. You basically depress certain areas, and then you come in and you buy them up at a discount, and then you push the people who are there out. And so what the UN is basically doing, although some Africans will look at it as, oh my God, now the UN is thinking of moving its headquarters, that means we have the seat of power. No, you don't. No, you don't. What they're doing is looking for cheaper areas with the climate that will work for their workforce. And they're not necessarily going to be hiring Kenyans in high positions. We will have more places to serve as chauffeurs and to serve as servants and to take care of their manicured lawns. But you are basically going to be buying up land. And whose land are you buying up, and where are those people going to go to? You are going to be moving resources. They claim they're bringing in more resources, but like this woman is saying, I don't have electricity for my basic needs so that my meat doesn't get spoiled. But these places are going to be areas with the data they use and all of that, where they are pulling down massive amounts of electricity and other resources that will be channeled there. They will not have any water shortages because, and we've seen this, we saw this in Ayikwa Amaz, the Revolutionaries, where they basically come in and build their own infrastructure, build schools that children of Kenyans cannot attend unless maybe they got some kind of middle-level job within the UN. And even then, so that these kids are raised in a little bubble. You go to their area and everything looks like maybe you are in New York City. And then you drive 500 yards out of that area and it's absolute, abject poverty. And so, again, the fact that we get so excited by our proximity to whiteness, we get so excited anytime the white man is going to come and pat our head a little bit, and we don't look at the larger picture. Now, could this be a win-win? I don't know. I don't know Nairobi well enough. But the question is, was this fallow land? Was there nobody else on this land? Can it be used to grow food? What is in it for the Kenyans as a whole? Not a handful of Kenyan officials or elites who are going to get nicely rewarded for smoothing the way for the UN to unpack a lot of debts that they would have had otherwise if they stayed in larger cities, and then to come here. Are they paying taxes? What is the long-term benefits to us? And those are questions that all too often we're not asking. Will they be funding public schools as a whole? Or again, just building their own private enclaves and nothing changes? If anything, things get worse for the haves and the have-nots. So what comes to mind right now is like a plantation system. And you have master and a few servants.
Of course.
And then everybody else is toiling in the fields if they're lucky.
Yeah, and you would then also create within the African society, you will then create a hierarchy of who is closer to massa. And for me, personally, I don't see the point of having the UN agency in any African country. And I'll tell you why. One is the fact that they've been running around Africa since 1960s. In fact, the longest serving peacekeeping force is in Congo.
And I don't know how much peace they've kept.
I mean, there you go. Thomas Sankara posed the question. He said, you guys have been, and this was in 1984. He posed the question, You guys have been here since the 1960s. Show me one successful African country that has bought into your programs. And when you mention Ayikwe Ama in the resolutionaries, he also points out to that they bring all this copy and paste problems using black faces to sell them to our people, knowing fully well they know from day one it's not going to work. But it's a way of paying their academicians to sort of go out and use Africa as a test tube for all of their wild and myriad of ideas that they probably won't be able to, put out in the Western sphere. And he said, show me one successful country. If you do, then I'll probably buy into it. Otherwise, move over and let's get on with it. So for me, when I read the story, I was like, first and foremost, you're going to create more problems. Kenya is already...
Nairobi is already overcrowded.
No, forget even Nairobi.
Somebody's going to be pushed out.
Forget even Nairobi. It's basically like Kenya itself is an open colonial sore. And you know what I mean by that? They've got a settler colonial problem.
So now we're going to bring in more settlers.
Exactly. So now you're going to bring...
While you're kicking us out of all your countries across the globe, yeah.
There you go.
And they'll bring in their surveillance, and they'll bring in their peacekeeping forces, and so on and so forth, yes.
Exactly. So, like you said, people sometimes they just embrace all these ideas that they think, because the white man's ice is colder, I should, buy into it. And then you will have people that look like you and I. People that look like you and I becoming the face of what is going to sell this problem to us. Because this is a problem. Nairobi has its own issues. For New Yorkers, they complain every September when the UN is in session, the UN General Assembly is in session, how busy the roads are. Now imagine you transferring that to a country or to Nairobi that doesn't have the kind of laid out roads that New York has.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be madness, So basically you're going to stop that 2 weeks that they're going to be around, stop everything in September for them. You wait for them to go, they leave, because there are also going to be leaders coming in. When the United States comes in, it shuts everything down. Everybody else can't move, even though you have a felon there, but still protocol is protocol, but hey, so we say all of that to say, for me, this idea is nonsensical. The idea that somebody even thought it's a worthy idea to go and sell to their people without actually understanding.
But this is the same government, though, that thought they should be sending peacekeeping troops to Haiti. Under the influence of the United States. So I don't know that we cannot make an argument that the president is somewhat compromised.
And
William Ruto. That nicely.
Yeah, William Ruto. I mean, to be fair, he did sit in Biden's chair and he was smiling like a Cheshire cat, That picture is, that was my dad, man. Like Adesoji, and he was smiling. It's like, whoa. Is that the bar of our ambitions to sit in the press? Oh God. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, we've just spoken about the colonial problem, the settler colonial problem of Kenya. And for that, we continue to hope that the Kenya government sees reason, talks to his people, and, basically just listen.
What are the chances? But hey, then again, the coalition that fought to maintain their ancestral lands, most people thought that was a losing battle, which is instructive as well, is don't give up. Yeah. Don't cede ground unnecessarily. So hopefully we have others who are already having this conversation. I know there are, and others who might watch this and reach out to people in Kenya and in the diaspora to say, hey, let's look at this a little differently, because there's so much more at stake. And again, what seems like a gain is very temporary for what the long-term impact will be.
Okay. That said, for final story, we go to Ghana. And it's a story from Middle East Eye. It's rather short story, and people will begin to see the reason why. And so it reads, call in Ghana to cancel Israeli Film Festival. And it reads, nearly 400 individuals and organizations in Ghana has called organizers to cancel an Israeli film festival set to be held between 16th and 20th of September in the capital Accra. In a letter sent to Silver Cinema, which is hosting the festival organized by Israeli embassy, signatories described the event as an attempt to whitewash genocide and apartheid. I mean, you can make I don't even know what to say, but over to you.
So I was trying to look up to see, since the dates were supposed to be September 16th through the 20th, whether they really did cancel it or not. What the final.
I did some research, but it was quiet, so I assume it went ahead, but without fanfare.
So going through this story, the first question I would ask, and again, I know that there's always seems to always be this push for outside investors. We can't fund our own things. And so to begin with, why was anybody taking money from Israel, even in good circumstances, to fund a festival in Ghana? Like, I always want to ask, what was in it for them? Why do you think that they would have done that? Who was ultimately making decisions about what films could be shown in, and so on and so forth? If even removing the events since October 7th, 2023, why would anyone, even before this more obvious genocide, have felt like, yeah, it makes sense to be in bed with Israel? Having said that, there are numerous Nigerian governors and other African leaders who go to Israel to get their security forces. But I think we do this because we do not study our own history. Because if we studied our own history, there's no way you are embracing Israel, even on quote unquote better times, because there has been no better time since they decided to come in and displace the Palestinians. That's just how I look at it. And so again, the good that I take from this is that some sectors of Africa reinvigorated, because I didn't want to just say waking up, because we know from studying Miriam Makeba and others, Winnie Mandela, we've always had a group of Africans who've agitated and fought back. It ebbs and flows, sometimes it wanes, but we've always had that group. But it seems to me that we have more people joining that fight and being more vocal, and perhaps social media is allowing us to see that fight in a different way, in that you do have a group of people who are saying, no, this should not hold. But like I said, I could not find any up-to-date information on whether indeed it was canceled or not. So possibly it did move ahead, but with some opposition in place. And that too is instructive, because maybe for next year, they don't even begin with reaching out to Israel to help us tell our own stories. Again, if we value ourselves, we have enough resources to hold our own festivals ourselves. Israel does not come and ask Palestine to fund their festival or any group they've oppressed. You understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
So we really need to think about who we decide to consort with and how much power we are giving to others over our storytelling, over our ancestral lands, over our spirituality, over our education, over our resources, and over our future.
Yeah. Okay, so when I picked up the story, the first thing I did was Silverbird. Who owns Silverbird? Silverbird is owned by a Nigerian.
Yes.
Ben Murray Bruce.
Yes.
Do you know what his nickname is?
No, I do not.
His nickname is Mr. Common Sense. Now, what common sense is that in allowing a country that is clearly that the world has told you is carrying out a genocide to hold an event celebrating themselves in your establishment. That's one. Two is the fact that the insult alone that you will be doing that in the first country that was independent in Africa, in Ghana. It was March 6, 1957. And to quote the words of Kwame Nkrumah, that simply because Ghana is independent doesn't mean the rest of the world is independent. So your liberation is incomplete without the liberation of everybody else. Again, tapping into history, one of the first person that Nelson Mandela reached out to when he came out of prison was Yasser Arafat of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, because he said without Yasser Arafat's training in Algeria, the ANC, the Nkumtu Sigwe, which is the spear of the nation, would not have had any training on guerrilla tactics. So they lent it. So you begin to see how most of these countries are historically tied. Now, one final thing, when you mentioned the African leaders that go to Israel to go and get security, it's almost as if sometimes they don't study the news. Only last 2 weeks ago, nearly 2 weeks ago now, 2 weeks ago, Israel attempted to kill the diplomatic wing of Hamas in Qatar. The same group they're negotiating with the connivance of the United States. And for some reason, you still think these guys will protect you when their interest is at stake. The mind boggles. And again, if the Yorubas have this saying that if you have a dog that belongs to your neighbor and you hope that dog is going to protect your own house, you've got another thing coming. Because when they want to come and rob your house, guess who's going to open the door? That same dog. It's going to tell you how you can get in and out. So you begin to wonder that all of this plays into some sort of a deep colonial mindset that you are in a country, independent, you've got your money, but yet you cannot take a deep, that this you will not allow to stand in your own.
So again, when we use words, and I'm correcting myself here because these words are really powerful. I think we should actually even expound on when we say colonial mentality.
Okay. So
in
basically,
the sense that this is about ingrained hatred of self. Like we really do some of us see ourselves as inferior.
Yeah.
And it happens through colonialism, but in other places it's happened in other ways as well. But it's a virus that has infected us because the festival was organized by the Embassy of Israel in Ghana.
Yeah.
And guess what? The event was supposed to include, if it happened, winning Israeli films. So this was a propaganda thing.
There you go.
We are killing off Palestinians. We know we're getting bad press in some places. More and more countries are coming out now and recognizing Palestine. Don't know why they didn't do it 10 years ago. Don't know why it takes a genocide, but glad that they are finally coming around. So this was to include award-winning Israeli films. And then they were going to include shorts by Ghanaian film students. So it's not even a celebration of Ghanaian culture. This is a propaganda tool for Israel. And we've seen it again for those of you who also watch us on Women and Resistance. Remember when we were talking about, oh my God, okay, the name just escaped me, but she had done some propaganda work across the Caribbean. She was in the UK. You know who I'm talking about.
Claudia Jones.
No, not Claudia. She was born in Jamaica and then moved and, oh God, her name is escaping me right now. But anyway, she talked about she and her husband having been hired to do propaganda work first for the BBC but then also some Caribbean nations brought them back to do some work as well. So we need to be really clear about how the things that we're watching didn't just fall from the sky. They are curated. And we always need to be asking ourselves as we're consuming, who curated this? And now it's just eating me up that her name is not coming to mind right this second.
I'm trying to
But
think.
yes. What did you just say?
I'm trying to recall the name. The name will come to me before we sign off.
Yeah.
The great cinematographer Usman Sembeni often says that the use of cinema is essentially, how did he say it? He said cinema was a night school for the masses in order to ensure that their freedom is not compromised. Now, you go into a
break that down.
You go into a cinema and the lights are switched off. It's your senses and what is projected in front of you. The more you engage with what is projected in front of you, the lights, Tony Kate Bambara talked about it in her work, that, the lights, the use of space, sound, all of these things have a lasting impact on people. So when you watch a film, you're not just watching a film. Your spirit is connecting with the message because you need your sensory.
The music is designed to draw you in, everything.
Exactly.
Yes.
So all the matter in front of you is talking to your sensories, your ears, your heart. It's pulling at your emotions. I'll give an example. There is a movie going out now. It's titled Rind. It's about the 6-year-old girl that was killed in a car with her uncles. And in fact, I don't even want to go back into it. It's kind of, so you've got a 6-year-old who basically had to stay 6 hours with, with dead relatives, and only for her to be unalived herself. In the car, 453 bullets were expended in this car. And this same country that carried out that heinous act, Sylvia Winter, is the one you want to remember? So, thanks to the chat. You see, this is what happens when you build community. Thanks, Tiara. So that's what happens when you take in information based on cinema. You're not just going to do cinema. You do the cinema, then the lights come on, you talk about the film, the director will sit there, will take questions, will basically expound on how he thinks whatever he's doing is great, to the detriment of what is happening. Which brings me to this 2014 film titled, no, not 2014, 2023 actually. 2023 film titled Zone of Interest. And the Zone of Interest is essentially about what happened during the Second World War, where a wall divided the gas chambers from the living quarters of the Germans. And if you saw what was happening on the other side of the world, as gory as it was, but on the side of the German living quarters, they were having barbecues, they were swimming, they were reading, they were carrying on as if life was normal.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this is essentially what that festival is choosing to do. It's choosing to create a zone of interest in Ghana for us to believe that the world out there does not exist. Meanwhile, we're going to be loading ourselves, giving ourselves pats on the back with regards to, a quote unquote, an artistic work wherein if you just pull the curtain down, there is blood being splattered all over the world at this moment in time. So, like you said, the recognition of Palestine is, although welcome, it's, in the case of the United Kingdom, which has just done it today, it's 7 decades too late, but they did.
What other countries so far have acknowledged Palestine?
So France is saying they're going to recognized, but we've not heard from France yet. Germany is holding out because of its guilt from the Second World War. It's saying it's not exactly going to recognize Palestine, but it's going to hold back on the weapons. So I guess, but meanwhile, in Germany, for my friends who are living in Berlin, they say, well, the repression actually has now extended to the Palestinians. You cannot say from river to the sea, you'll be arrested. You cannot say, it's almost like your lexicon is being policed, which is the same here in the UK. So, but now that Palestine
definitely happening in the US. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yours started with the colleges and, and people losing their jobs. Now people be getting deported because, again, it begs the question, is free speech, is it dead or not? Which is the question.
Where did the notion of free speech come from? Did it ever exist? Has speech in the Western world ever been free?
Yeah, it has been.
No.
Really?
Aren't there always consequences to speech?
Yes, there are consequences.
And one of the things that we say here in the United States is that we might say speech is free, but the marketplace is expensive. So I think that there's this propaganda of, yes, that you have had free speech in America. But when was that exactly? Was that when a Black person had no right to defend themselves in court and they could not testify against a white person? Was that when women could not refuse their husbands sexually? Was that when has speech been free in using America, since America is like the quote unquote world's proponent of free speech? When exactly has speech been free in this country? Beyond the propaganda that we are the land of free speech, or it's, the First Amendment guarantees us our right to free speech. When has speech been free? Was it free for the freedom riders? Was it free for Malcolm X or Martin Luther King?
Yeah. Was it free for Paul Robeson?
Thank you. I mean, so this idea of Rubio saying he's going to start revoking our passports, have we not seen it before? Was it free under the Joe McCarthy era? Was it free for Claudia Jones or Lauren Handrick? When exactly was speech free? So, but they tell us this stuff and we just agree with it. But if you really unpack it, it's like, when was speech free for those who were not white, Anglo-Saxon, propertied men?
Wow.
When was that? But all of us just kind of buy into land of the free, home of the brave, whatever it is. When?
Good question. I suppose that's the question we'll leave our audience with. When was speech ever free? So I would like to thank my good sister for always bringing our A game.
We do have to go through the list. I feel like it's not Sylvia Winter, but I might be wrong. We've covered so many people, and I'm trying to go through my mind's eye.
You said?
Because at one point she worked with her husband. So it's the sister who was married. She did have a couple of children with it. First she was married to the Swiss guy, and then she married a brother from the Caribbean. They had a couple of children. He was also a writer. Maybe it was Sylvia Winters. And then...
No, Sylvia Winters doesn't have several children. Surely.
Okay. Yeah. Something about Sylvia Winters and that story were not exactly jiving. And I am totally just not. So tune in for Women in Resistance on Wednesday. And we are going to start off with answering this question that I brought up. Yeah. And then we'll go into the lady that we are.
Yeah. So this week, Wednesday, to be exact, Wednesday the 24th, we're going to be looking at the life and times of Julia Boggles. So join us on Women in Resistance. And and we'll also bring you the name of the woman who is currently running around in our head that refuses
running around like I've gotta do this. Yeah, I've got to go back and connect the stories for
Hold
sure.
on. I would. Bear me a second. Let me see. Who is that? Propaganda.
Give me the list of women from the Caribbean.
From the Caribbean. Lucy Parsons?
No, because Lucy was labor in Chicago.
Bessie Head?
No,
definitely not Bessie Head.
South Africa.
So let me see. What's this? God, I think it's Sylvia Winter. You know,
might be Sylvia Winters.
I think it's Sylvia Winter. It's Sylvia
Might be
Winter.
Sylvia Winters.
It's Sylvia Winter.
Because she was writing at one point with that husband, but then they also split up.
Yeah, it was Sylvia Winter.
But yes, it was. All right. Well, okay.
How can you
Sarah
doubt?
She had it correct the whole time.
How can you doubt her?
He had it correct the whole time. But again, the importance of these stories and remembering and figuring things out and seeing how patterns repeat themselves and so on and so forth. So, hey, brothers and sisters, we got to stay vigilant. And I would say if you're not part of an organization, start looking around to figure out what organization you can be a part of, because none of these articles that we've addressed today can an individual come up against the system and bring about change. It requires community. And it is easier to get people to work with you on an issue if you've already been building relationships with them. If you wait until there's an issue and then you show up, there are going to be some people who are like, do I know you? Have I seen you before? So as comfortable as it might be, especially for those of us who are introverted, to just kind of stay in your corner and do your own thing, we need one another.
Yeah. And as they say, iron sharpens iron, and sometimes you might be a letter writer. Somebody else might be a speech reader, So each bring their brick, as the good doctor will say. And can't help but bring up the good doctor.
And if you don't know who the good doctor is, if you just happen to be catching us, you want to go on YouTube and look for In Class with Carr, Carr, and jump onto that and maybe join that community.
Yeah, that's it. Dr. Greg Carr. Yeah, Dr. Greg Carr. Yeah. So, episode 289 at the moment. I don't know how the man does it, but he does it.
Phenomenal.
Yes. Yeah. So, sister, final words?
Grateful for you, as always, bringing light to these stories, but also very heartbroken that this is where we are at this time. But hey, our ancestors fought, and we must take up that baton and fight the good fight and pass that baton on to other people. And that's what you're doing. So thank you for your leadership.
Yes. And as the old African proverb goes, as long as the lions don't have their own historian, the story of the hunt will continue to glorify the hunters. So we're the lions, we've decided, you know what? We're going to reframe the narrative and we're going to speak the stories of the lions. So continue to join us. Join us next week as we bring you some other stories. Hopefully the good comrade will be back with us. Until next week, it's good night and God bless.
That's a wrap for this week on the African News Review Podcast. We hope you are living with a clearer, more truthful picture of Africa. Remember, every story has another side, and we're here to uncover it. Don't forget to join us next Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern as we continue to challenge the narratives and reclaim Africa's voice. If you've enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave us a review. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep seeing Africa for what it truly is.